who do you have as finishing third in this division? This is where it gets interesting because the first one was fourth is kind of obvious. There's three good teams in the Bengals who are rebuilding. Who do you have as the finishing third in this division?
All right. So this, yeah, like you said, three playoff teams left in this division. This is why this division's fun to look at and break down. The Pittsburgh Steelers are coming in at number 3 for me. I don't know if this is a hot take. I think that this is probably a mild take now at this point because everyone's so high on the Browns and the Ravens are the Ravens. Listen, there's not a whole lot you could say wrong about this roster as a whole. I think this is a really good defense still. I think this is still, some really talented wide receivers. They still got a top-tier coach. I know you rate him a little higher than I do, but still a very good coach. There's just some glaring holes with this team that I'm not sure they got better at. And some of their strengths, including that edge rusher group that we're going to talk about, I think got a little bit worse. So the question is, can they hold up with this team, knowing that they got worse at a couple spots? And I know they added a new running back, but did they do enough with that offensive line and other positions to get good enough to fix those holes that were really bad? Because they look fantastic starting 9-0. They looked like a real, a Super Bowl contender. After that, they did not look like a Super Bowl contender. So which Pittsburgh Steelers are we getting? I'm going to lean that is probably somewhere in the middle of those two teams. And I still think that's the third best team in this division just because it's so competitive. So I'm going with the Steelers third.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, they don't feel like finishing third in their division team, but it just kind of goes to the, where the other two teams are at. I also have them as third. They're within a win of who I have at second. So it is close. But let's get into it. First off, you have Mike Tomlin, who I'm a huge fan of. I have him as my second favorite coach in the NFL. That adds 3/4 of a win right there. Ben Roethlisberger did make tier 3, so that's another 1.99 wins right there. So, the quarterback, not what he once was, but still had his moments last year. I think Roethlisberger, it's almost become underrated at this point. People act like he was completely washed up. He had his moments. He was kind of a game manager, but there is value in that. And I think Tomlin is just great. Yeah.
I mean, look, for Big Ben, for where he is in his career at his age and what he's been able to do, I thought he came in and did exactly what he needed to do for this team to win a lot of games and be really competitive. He didn't turn the ball over. He managed the game, and he got the ball to his playmakers. I just thought that the issues with the Steelers' offense aren't on Big Ben, but it's not like he's Big Ben of 2000, even 2018 Big Ben winner. I think that was the year he led the league in passing yards. He's not able to elevate this group like he could in the past. So I think that because of that and that there's still holes in this offense, I think it just made him look worse than what he is. I still think he's a good quarterback, but there's still just too many holes in this offense that I trust him enough to be able to elevate this to compete with Cleveland or Baltimore right now.
Yeah. The nice thing is they did make some improvements. Their running game was horrible last year, and now they added Najee Harris. Then they still have Kevin Ballage and Benny Snell. So I think those guys are better off when they don't have to be the number one guy. I like Najee Harris enough. It's a tier 3 running back room, whereas without it, it would be easily tier 5. So that helps a lot. You also have, for their wide receiver / tight end group, you have a plethora of options here. Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Eric Ebron, and Pat Freiermuth, all guys who, I think could be really good. The question is sort of, do you have the high-end guys? Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool have shown they can be like good 2s. Can they be a 1? We saw Juju, we haven't really seen them be like a true number 1 option ever. So as of right now, that's also tier 3.
Yeah, I think this is still tier 3 right now, but I have a hot take. I don't know if this is hot. So I think by the end of next season, along with, we talk about that tier 1 of wide receiver duos with Godwin and Evans, Jones and Brown, that group. And, some people put them in tier 1, but I think they're more tier 2 with Lockett and Metcalf. I think Claypool and Deontay Johnson end up in that conversation next season. I think these two are incredible talents. I think that they're really good, and I think they do a lot of really good things for this offense. And I think they're both going to have over 1,000 yards next season. So I think that Johnson and Claypool end up in that conversation of best wide receiver duos in the NFL.
Interesting. So I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose it's possible. So, but this also part of the issue might be, you have James Washington. I think James Washington's underrated. He's the guy who comes in and gets like the third down catch. And Juju Smith-Schuster, Eric Ebron. So are these guys? It'd be hard for both Claypool and Johnson to just get enough targets to get 1,000 yards if all the other guys here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that they have such depth of options that they can go to. I think they have, 4 guys here for over 50 receptions, 6 guys for over 30 receptions on the year, which is, really good. I just think that they're special. I think Deontay Johnson's awesome. I just enjoy watching him play for Pittsburgh all the time. And that pains me to say as a Patriots fan, but he is really good and a really skilled receiver. I think he hits that level as a tier 1 receiver potentially, or at least tier 2. And then I think Claypool is going to be up there with him taking that leap too.
Yep, it's possible. Johnson did have over 900 yards last year, so it's not crazy. But I would still say I haven't seen either one of them be like, oh yeah, that's a top 20 receiver in the league. I haven't seen that yet from anyone on this roster.
That's fair. I mean, like I said, it would take a leap, and that's why it's kind of a hot take. But yeah, I still think it's a pretty good group overall, and it's really dangerous.
Yeah. What's also dangerous in the other way is their offensive line. How's that for a transition? This is a tier 5 offensive line. And the difference about so there's a couple things to like about the Steelers offensive line. They do have David DeCastro and Kevin Dotson at guard, but kind of my thought is, it's similar to the Bengals offensive line, but Cincinnati has good tackles, and I'd always take the offensive line with good tackles and the suspect, interior than the solid interior but suspect tackles. They have Okafor, who is not great. Zach Banner, who's only had 302 snaps in 4 years. He's shown flashes, but he's probably replacement level. And then for center, you have looks like it could be a competition between Kendrick Green, a third rounder, and J.C. Hasnauer. So there's some concerns for the offensive line.
Concerns is putting it mildly, because this is the reason why I have him down in third, because, it was shocking to see actually that this team was, they only got sacked 14 times last season. That was a little surprising to see, but a lot of it had to do with the quick passing game that they were running and short passing game that they were running. And I mean, part of me thinks that the short passing game combined with their lack of running game was simply just because they didn't trust this offensive line. And I still don't trust this offensive line to get it done. And it's part of the reason why I'm concerned about this team. I don't think this offensive line is going to be good. I think that they, help themselves in the running game a little bit by getting a better running back. But at the same time, he's not getting any help from the guys in front of him. And I wonder if that's going to jeopardize him early in his first season.
Yeah, I agree. So that puts their offensive line, their offense ends up being tier 3, everything except for O-line, which is tier 5. So that puts them at 22nd in the league, according to this. So we can switch over to defense now. So their coverage is another tier 3. So there are a lot of tier 3s for Pittsburgh. They don't have a ton of holes, a couple, but they have Justin Lane, who was a third round pick and wasn't great in just 122 or 2019 third round pick. Gave up a 117.7 passer rating, but limited sample size. But you also have Joe Hayden, who's older but solid, Cameron Sutton, and then their safety group is really what makes it work. With you have Minkah Fitzpatrick, obviously, and Terrell Edmonds, and even I'm interested to see what Devin Bush does, and we'll get into that a little bit more with run defense. But they end up as a mediocre coverage unit.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem that I have, is that I don't think these corners are fantastic. And, I don't think it's Minnesota level bad from last year, where despite having really good safeties, they had just atrocious corner play that killed the defense. But it's getting close to that category, because, I mean, you would probably argue that if you separated it, this is a tier 1 safety group and a tier 4 cornerback group. I mean, is that fair?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm curious to see how that works out for them, especially maybe, there's a chance they're not getting as consistent of a pass rush this season. And if then it's not as consistent of a pass rush from this group, can these corners hold up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a reasonable concern. Let's talk about the pass rush. I mean, we can kind of talk about, we'll do the pass rush and run defense together because we go over a lot of the same stuff. They're both tier 1. This is it's still a great front 7 and front 5 with their, I mean, your stuff is on the interior, Stephon Tuitt, Tyson Alawu, and Cameron Hayward. You also have TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, who did look good in a limited role last year. I made a shorter breakdown talking about his game. The linebacking core is the one maybe slight question mark. Vince Williams, though, is good in run defense. And Devin Bush, who I thought was okay all around. I'm still looking and didn't play much last year. So we're still sort of waiting for him to break out a little bit. He was obviously the first-round pick from a couple of years ago. But really good stuff here. So, again, this isn't as important to me, the pass rush and run defense. I care more about coverage. So there's not as much wins here. So they end up with the 6th best defense and the 22nd best offense.
Yeah, and then the question is just going to become, there was debates going on is the contract worth it for Bud Dupree? Is he worth paying, or, is it kind of an overpay because he was playing next to TJ Watt and so many skilled guys? I mean, I sort of like Bud Dupree, and, as much promise as Alex Highsmith had, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to have the same sort of production and same sort of level as Bud Dupree. I think I don't know. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I would say that Bud Dupree, I would probably rather have him than Alex Highsmith, but I would still say that it's probably the correct move to let him walk, just given the fact that edge rushers are, I think, overrated. So I would probably say that it makes sense to do that, but at the same time, it's going to be a bit of a drop off for sure.
Yeah. So, and that's my thing, if this drops off slightly, how does that hold up in the secondary? How does that how does that affect the rest of the defense? Because I think they rely on the constant pressure from those edge rush guys.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's possible. Also, just to round it out, we have Chris Boswell. He's a tier 1 kicker. That's another 0.67 wins. So you add it all up together. This now means that they are the 14th best team in the league with 9.61 wins. So you round that up. That's a 10-win team. Again, this is 17-game schedule, so 10-7, which would put them at this. It would put them as in the playoffs for Pittsburgh as the 6th seed.
Yeah, and as we're separating these 3 teams, I mean, I think all of us are kind of projecting all 3 of them to make the playoffs again. So just because once again we're saying that Pittsburgh is the 3rd best team in this division, 3rd best team in this division might be the 5th best team in the AFC. So, I think that they're going to be just fine overall, but I just have a few more concerns compared to them over Baltimore and Cleveland, which is why I have them at 3rd.
Yeah. We also have someone in the chat saying they have the Steelers at 2-15. That is not going to go over well with the rest of the Steelers fans in the chat.
Yeah, you can go ahead and bet that. We'll see what happens.
Exactly. So it should be interesting though. And again, the worst thing, they're the kind of team where the worst thing they have going for them is just playing in the AFC North. Like that's the biggest. All the concerns you want to say, that's their biggest concern.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's the biggest thing. And like I said, I still think they're going to be fine. I think all 3 of these teams are playoff teams for me right now still.